So in this video, we're going to talk about the significant figure rules, okay? And so there are 4 rules. The last rule we got to be careful of, okay? So the first rule says that all non-zero digits are significant, okay? So all non-zero digits are significant. So 2, 9, 3, all these non-zero digits are significant. 5 in this case, 4 in this case, okay? So all non-zero digits are significant. So this is the first rule that we should be careful of, okay? Now the second rule says that interior zeros, what do we mean? Okay, well, zeros between 2 non-zero digits, okay? So notice that here are my 2 non-zero digits, and I have a 0 in between, okay? So these happen to be significant numbers, okay? So interior zeros are significant digits, okay? Now for this one, again, you could see that this 0 is sandwiched in between 2 non-zero digits, okay? And so this 0 is significant also. Again, this 0 also happens to be significant because here's 3, here's 1, and it's between 2 non-zero digits. So that's the second rule, okay? Now the third rule says that leading zeros are not significant. They only serve to locate the decimal point, okay? So what do we mean by leading zeros? Well, zeros to the left of the first non-zero digit. So what do we mean by that? Well, all these zeros here, okay, happen to be, they're not significant, okay? So these zeros, so leading zeros, okay, happens to be not significant, okay? Not after we pass the first non-zero digits, okay? Non-zero digit, okay? So leading zeros in front, okay, these all happen to be non-significant, okay? And so we're going to look at some examples at the end. So the fourth rule, we got to break down a little bit. And so the fourth rule says that trailing zeros, okay, and what do we mean by trailing zeros? Those zeros at the end of a number, they're categorized as follow, okay? So trailing zeros are decimal points, are always significant, okay? So trailing zeros after a decimal point are always significant. So after the decimal point, any 0 after a decimal point is always significant. And so in fact, this is significant. Well, the 1, we know 1 is always significant. It's a non-zero digit, but the idea is that any trailing 0 after a decimal point is always significant. Okay. Okay. And so that's why I mapped this to this. This actually belongs to this here for the example. Now, trailing 0 is before a decimal point, okay, and after a non-zero number are always significant. So again, you could see before a decimal point, after a non-zero number, okay, these are always significant. Okay, and then we always say that trailing zeros after a decimal point, they're always significant, okay? And so you could see that before, after 2 non-zero digits, we have these 2 zeros here. These are significant. Okay, so these are significant, okay? Now, trailing zeros before an implied decimal point are ambiguous. So this is one that we gotta be very careful of. Notice that there's no decimal point here. Okay, and so, if a teacher is grading your paper, they're going to say, okay, well, is it 2 significant figures or 4? Okay, because there's no decimal point, we're always going to take this to be 2 significant figures. Now, what if I did something like this and put a decimal point there? Now I could say for a fact that this has 4 significant digits. This will have 2. And so this is why you always want to put your decimal in place. Okay. So again, this is ambiguous. Do not ever write a number out and say, okay, well, this is actually 4 significant figures, because again, because it's ambiguous, we're always going to take this as the fact that this is actually 2 significant figures. With a decimal in place, we could definitely say for sure this is actually 4 significant figures. And so again, the point is, well, if I have 1.2 times 10 to the 3, then again, I could say this is definitely 2 significant figures. Okay, I could go 1.20 times 10 to the 3. We could say that is 3 significant figures. Okay, so with that being said, I'm just gonna throw out some random examples here to kind of see how many significant figures are we going to take these to have. Okay, so what if I did How many significant figures do you think this would have? Well, to me, it looks as if I have zeros after a non-zero number. So I know this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then any zero after a decimal point is always significant. And so we have 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 significant figures in this. Okay. Now what about this one? How many significant figures do we have in this one? Well, it looks to me, again, all these zeros are leading zeros, and they do not come after a non-zero number. So we could count these. We know by the rule that these are actually non-significant numbers. Now we know that any zero after a decimal point is always significant. We know that any zero after a decimal point is always significant. And so by that rule, we could count this as 1, 2, 3. So this will actually have 3 sig figs. Okay. Now we could also go by the other rule. Okay. We could also say the fact that this zero is sandwiched in between two non-zero number. That would also make it a significant digit. Okay. So what if I did this? How many significant figures would this have? Well, to me, it looks as if I have 1, 2. These are non-zero numbers. And then after a decimal point, any zero after that is always significant. And so, in fact, we have 1, 2, 3. We have 5 sig figs here. Okay. Now, what about this one? How many sig figs does this number have? Well, to me, again, it looks as if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is actually 7 sig figs. Now, why? Why is that the case? Well, to me, it looks as if I have a zero. It comes after a non-zero number. It's before the decimal point. Well, if it comes after a non-zero number and it's sandwiched in between two non-zero numbers, well, this has to be significant. Okay. And the fact that this comes after a non-zero number, we should know that that zero is also significant. And then we also said that trailing zeros after a decimal point are always significant. Okay. So how about this one? How many sig figs does this have? Well, again, it looks to me that these zeros come after a non-zero number, and it's before the decimal point, so we know that these have to be significant. And then we said that non-zero numbers in general are significant. And so, in fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, in fact, we'll have 6 sig figs here. Okay, now what about this one? How many sig figs will we have? Well, to me, it looks as if all these are leading zeros, and they come before a non-zero number. So all these are non-significant. And then after a decimal point, we say, okay, well, any zeros after that decimal point. Well, we got to be careful here. We can't just say, well, any zero after a decimal point, because notice that these are after the decimal point, but in fact, they're still trailing zeros. They're still leading zeros. I'm sorry about that. So in fact, because we have after the decimal point, we have a non-zero number. Okay, we have a non-zero number. Anything that comes after that has to be significant. And so in fact, this will actually have 4 sig figs. Okay. So hopefully you get the general gist. So again, this is how we could tell, how many sig figs a number have by using these important significant figure rules.